I decided today I'm going to make meatballs because we're having a Picard viewing at our house tonight, and I promised my family meatballs. And I started thinking about what my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and how they used to cook, and how I wish that they had saved their recipes, because of course they never really had a recipe. You just kind of watched what they were doing and they used what they had. But I'm doing this for my brother Randall, because Randall always seems to love my cooking. So I decided that I would start recording. Why not? So we're going to be doing meatballs today. I'm going to make a meat sauce, and I wanted to do short ribs, meatballs, sausage, that kind of thing, but they didn't have short ribs, so I like chicken thighs in my sauce, so we're going to do that. But right now we're going to focus on our meatballs. Every time I make meatballs, they're a little bit different, but I have to tell you, the one thing that I love in my meatballs is pork. That's my favorite. So my pork to beef ratio is 3-to-1 typically. That's my oven. It's preparing to cook the meatballs. So I've got 3 pounds of ground pork, which looks beautiful. I had a hard time finding it in the grocery store. Sometimes I buy a pork loin and kind of grind it myself with my handy dandy KitchenAid that I bought myself. So we've got 3 pounds of pork and about 1 pound, 1.18 pounds of beef that I'm going to put into the biggest bowl I could find. And while we're doing that, I just figured I'd get those in. I pre-washed my hands, and I will be washing my hands constantly throughout this entire video because I hate having dirty hands. I also have a little bowl with, whatever bread I have on hand. I mean, if I've got it's usually Italian bread, but it's what I have on hand. If I have like leftover ciabatta or whatever, I'll use that. But I've got a bowl of, for this amount of meat, I had about 4 pieces of bread with 1 heel, and then I just kind of pour a little bit of milk over that so that it's completely saturated, because I just love the moisture that the milk brings out in the meatballs. So I've sharpened my knife, and sometimes when I make meatballs I pre-cook the onions and garlic, but this meatball recipe is going to be baked and also stewed in a sauce for a very long time, so they're going to be really well cooked throughout. So I'm not going to worry so much about having it pre-cooked, though that is something that I do sometimes. So I've got a couple of onions. I use red onions because I had red onions. It doesn't really matter. Honestly, in my opinion, I've used yellow onions. I use red onions. It's what I've got in my produce drawer, honestly. So I'm just going to chop up these onions, and I like to chop them small. This is a relatively small onion, so I'm not going to worry too much about having it. So I'm just going to dice it up nice and small. And I learn all these different things because I'm obsessed with cooking shows. So the one thing that I learned to have on your table is a little garbage bowl. So I'm just going to slice this onion a little bit in half, and then I go down either side, pretty small slices on either side. And this top of this, that's something you don't want to, you always want a flat side down when you're cooking, when you're cutting. Almost done chopping my onions, cooking, and because I'm obsessed with cooking shows, that's why you have to endure my chopping. So we've got those 2 onions chopped pretty nicely. I'm just going to put that right in the meat. I'm not going to worry about anything sauteing them or whatever. This is a pretty big piece of garlic. I mean, I don't know, it came off of a, so this is probably equivalent to maybe 3 cloves of garlic, so I think I'm just going to use that one for this. This is huge, and this is not elephant garlic, but that's huge. That's a huge piece of garlic. My gosh, that's going to be plenty of garlic for our meatballs. I mean, our meatballs are going to be flavored with the sauce because they are going to go and cook in the sauce. Because like I said, I am making a meat sauce, and I will show you the sauce as well. My husband, hello, say hello. He gets the benefit from my cooking and my meatballs, and he tolerates me doing weird things like this. So, oh, he's going by. Don't look, don't look. Don't look. Now, if that is not an Italian husband, I don't know what is. So if I don't know how to make meatballs, failed as an Italian wife. I like to do the garlic as fine as possible. You don't want to bite into a big old hunk of garlic, so I couldn't smash it to get it really well, so I'm going to have to chop, 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 and chop some more. This is quite a bit of garlic, but I've got quite a bit of meat there, so all right, so that's your garlic, and again, right into the meat. Now what we have here, actually, you know what? I bought new parsley, so no, I guess I'll use this. This still looks nice and green, so it's good, but it was in the refrigerator. I wasn't sure when I went shopping whether I had parsley or not, so, you know, why take the chance? So usually what I do when it's brand new, this I used some before, but when I get a brand new stock, I just start chopping it like that, and I get all the nice green leaves off. I had my Nani Carbone, which was my great-grandmother. Her house smelled incredible, and I've never been able to replicate. I get close, but I've never been able to replicate the flavors that she had. And one of the reasons why is because everything she made was right out of the garden. I mean, everything that she did was, she grew it. And I don't have that. I'm not a gardener. I wish I had that skill, but I do not. I kill plants. That's why you will not see a plant in this house, because I don't know, I used it before, but I got it pretty dry. I mean, you could put your parsley in a salad spinner to dry it even more, but the moisture is not going to kill. I mean, any moisture you can keep in your meatballs is always good. I did want to say that with the ground beef, I usually use a higher fat ground beef, and that's because with fat comes flavor. So I don't get the 90%, 95%. No. I mean, the pork to beef ratio is higher than, you know, some people use. They use the meatloaf for an even amount of veal and pork and beef. But I like pork meatballs. I don't know. They're just, I like the flavor of it. It just, hey. And that's the thing. That's the great thing about cooking. You cook what you like. That's the way I like it, so that's the way they're gonna get it. Freedom in that, and that's the thing. When you're cooking, it's your game, it's your story. So if you like it that way, that's why I get frustrated when people. I subscribe to a lot of cooking pages on Facebook, and when people are adamant, no, don't do that. Yes, do this. Oh, I always do that. Well, that's you. That's fine. You want to do it and you like it that way. You're the boss. You're the boss of your kitchen. But I'm the boss of mine. So if I like to put milk on my bread to put in my meatballs, then I'll do it. If I prefer to bake my meatballs before I put it in sauce, I do it. If you want to take the time to fry up all those meatballs, have at it. I've done it. I don't see a difference in fried meatballs or baked meatballs. Once I put them into the sauce, it just kind of absorbs that wonderful flavor of the sauce. And really, that's all I care about. In the end, it's the end product. And honestly, I don't really notice a difference, and it's a heck of a lot easier. I will tell you that. And I like my meatballs pretty moist, so it's hard to keep them round when you've got them in a frying pan. All right, so I don't know, I put a bunch of parsley in there. So the next thing is we've got the milk soaked bread, and I'm just gonna mush that around a little bit. And it is pretty mushy. I mean, I almost liquefy my bread. I mean, I know that may sound gross, but I tell you, it makes for a moist, wonderful, tasty meatball. And I actually don't discard the milk. I have the milk. So whatever milk is left in the bowl, it goes in the meatballs. It's wonderful. You know, it's just another add a thing that I particularly like. So it looks like a little bit of milk mush. It's not very pretty, but it tastes really good. And the end product, again, it's all about the end product. Gotta wash my hands again. Hands are washed, parsley's in. All right, now this is very important. The one thing that I hear every TV chef say, one of the things they say about home chefs, we don't season enough. You don't use enough salt. So I probably have been guilty of over salting, but I won't this time. That's a lot of meat, so a little bit of salt, and I use kosher salt. Whatever. That's the great thing about having an apron. I got this apron on Arthur Avenue. I went on a trip with a group of friends. We took a trip to Meatballs, and we went to Arthur Avenue and we did some shopping. And all the shops we came home with all kinds of stuff. Bread, cheese, raviolis. We went to the sausage store. I can't remember the name of the store, but it had sausage hams in it too. And I got the 12-year-old Parmesan cheese. And I'm using a lot of pepper. Yes, I know, but it's a lot of meat. You're going to want to season it really, really, really well. All right, so now we've got 3 pounds pork, 1 pound of beef. So my rule of thumb is an egg for each pound. It's not hard and fast, but it's what I'm thinking works for meatballs. I could do it one-handed, but I'd probably screw it up some. It's got garlic in there, it's got onions in there, it's got parsley in there. You got the meat, you got the eggs, and you got the bread mush. I know it's not very pretty again, but my kitchen, my meatballs, my rules. So now I got this bowl of meat, and I washed my hands several times so they're clean. So I'm just gonna dive in, okay? Get in there and try to not work it too much, just try to incorporate all the bread and the eggs. I turn up from the bottom, turn up from the bottom. I squeeze with my fingers, turn up from the bottom. You know what I forgot? Oh, this is a key ingredient and I forgot it. Oh my goodness, so it's not too late. It's not too late. So, what did I forget? My Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. I got my cheese. It's well loved. It used to be a big old hunk of cheese, but right now this is all that I have left of my cheese. So, so good. Oh, there's nothing like that smell. I have never made homemade pasta. Maybe I'll try that. Maybe I'll try it first before I record it. Getting almost down to the rind, and of course I saved the cheese rinds. Why? Soup. All right, so again, yes, it's probably, I don't know, 2 cups? Probably about 2 cups of grated cheese. Oh, it smells so good. All right, so I'm just gonna put that on top of my, and I use a paper plate, grate it on a paper plate, so easy. And let's get back to mixing these up. All right, let's get that cheese incorporated. Typically, the cheese would have already been in there, but this is how I cook. I screw up, go back, you fix it. Ice cream scoop, just to get a little bit of a consistency and size. I mean, you don't want, because I like decent sized meatballs. Oh, it's a small meatball, but that's probably about a scoop and a half. Size meatballs. So I'm going to just make sure that I this is the monotonous part. I'm making. All right, so we've got our first pan of meatballs. So I've got the oven at 350. It's preheated. I have a convection oven, so I leave it on convection. And then I'm going to throw these babies in, and then I'm going to finish rolling the rest of the bowl of meatballs. You don't need to watch me to do that. So I will do that. And when they're done, I'll come back. So as promised, I come back as soon as the meatballs were done. They were in there for about 45 minutes. Maybe an hour, but they came out very nice. Notice all the juice in there. So we're going to put those in the sauce, but I figured they're going to sit over here for a little bit whilst I prepare the sauce. So this is the simplest sauce that I have ever seen done, and I can't take credit for the idea. It was something that I saw. A friend of mine posted a video of their sauce, and I tried it and loved it, and it is the simplest sauce, and that's what sauce is. It's simple. So this friend makes her sauce with passata, which is just that, the pulp from tomatoes. Really, really good tomatoes. So the only thing that's really in the sauce is passata, garlic, and basil. How simple is that? But it was the tastiest sauce that I've ever had. So I like, just me, I know there's some that don't, I like a little red pepper in my sauce, so that's the only addition that I made to it. But it's passata, basil, garlic. We'll do that. So I'm just going to mince up some garlic, and because I'm making a meat sauce, and you know this sauce by itself stands alone, but I'm going to be adding a ton of meat to it, so it's going to have the added flavor from the meat. So we got 4 bottles of Mutti Passata. So this pretty much will dissolve, so I'm not so worried about making the garlic as small as I did when I made the meatballs. So we've got the olive oil in the pan. I don't want the handful, I just want to sprinkle. So I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of red pepper flake. And then I'm going to turn on the heat. I'm going to do in between medium and low, because my stove is really, the flame is really good. It's a gas stove. Wouldn't want to cook on anything other than gas stove. I had an electric stove for a while, but I tell you, I'm so thankful that I have a gas stove now, because I prefer cooking with gas. Just to me. So we've got the garlic in. Got my handy dandy wooden spoon. And I've got this extra big pot. I don't like to make my sauce in a metal pot, but because I'm going to be putting a ton of meat in it, I have to use the biggest pot I got, and the biggest pot I have is a metal one. I prefer to do it in my porcelain cast iron, like Le Creuset, but not whatever the cheap version of that was. I think I got my pot on QVC. Comes in very handy. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is lovely. Oh my God. It smells so good. And that's all what are the ingredients? Tomatoes, Mediterranean sea salt. That's it. Tomatoes, Mediterranean sea salt. That's the best stuff. Why complicate things? All right, last bottle. Now what I'm going to do is because there's an awful lot of goodness left in these bottles. And this sauce is going to cook for a while, so it's going to cook down. So you're going to want to, I'm going to rinse these out with some water and add the water to the sauce because it's going to cook down, so it's going to get thicker, but I want to get every little bit of sauce that's in these jars. So I'm going to go off to the sink, rinse these out, come back, add it to that, then I'll add the meatball. Once it comes up to a simmer, then I'll add the meatballs. Then I'm going to sear some thighs and then put that in, and I have some sausage too, so might as well. Got to have 3 different types of meat in a meat sauce, just in my humble opinion. Jars, a little bit of water in them, put the tops back on, because I'm going to want to shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, like a Polaroid picture. It's pretty thick, so I think I could add just a little bit more water because, again, it's going to cook down. So let's add a little more water. All right, a little bit more water. Now I've got the basil here. I mean, I add the basil as it's cooking. I'm not going to add it quite yet, but I will. And there's quite a bit of basil, and I use quite a bit in there because I like the basil. I think it sweetens it up a little bit, but I'll be picking off leaves and adding that to that. But in the meantime, we've got to wait for this to come up to a simmer. So I'll turn the heat up a little bit. Didn't want it to scorch the red pepper flake or the garlic yet. Those are all going to cook down in the sauce. And that's essentially it for the sauce. You let it cook down. Once it starts to simmer, you turn down the heat and you let it simmer, 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 simmer. Add your basil, stir, and let it just cook down until it comes to about 40 minutes. Well, for this one, this is 4 bottles, so I'm going to let this go at least an hour. I mean, it can't hurt it to cook it down. The more you cook it down, the more intense the flavors get. So just keep tasting along the way. All right, so I'm going to let that come up to a simmer, and then we'll add the meatballs, and I'll sear up some chicken thighs. I'll be back.